Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, and today we're taking a look at the Steam Autumn Sale of 2021 and the best it has to offer in the usual genres for the channel: strategy, sim, and management gaming. There are some great deals on right now, and it can be a bit hard to pick and choose, so before you end up with a bunch of games you'll never actually play, let's take a look at some that I think are well worth your time and money, especially on sale. HighFleet released earlier this year and is already 30% off, sitting at $23. Microprose is back at it with some great releases this year, and HighFleet is, in my opinion, top among them. I dropped a deeper look at the game earlier this year, and I've linked that video in the description if you'd like to check it out after for more details. Set in a retro-futuristic sci-fi universe built off some very strong Soviet vibes, you get a phenomenal aesthetic, a great set of gameplay mechanics, and a diegetic user interface to tie it all together. You lead a small fleet against foreign invaders, mounting a counterattack that will determine the sovereignty of your nation. You'll travel from city to city in a procedurally generated map, free to roam as you wish as long as you can refuel, rearm, and do battle. From time to time, you'll intercept communiques that keep you aware of where the enemy is, and should they ever spot you, they'll send their most capable strike forces against you. You'll be dodging them using all the tools at your disposal while chasing conversations with various notable figures seeking their help, and as the story unfolds before you, you'll engage in intense battles that involve maneuvering and targeting based on your ship's armaments and layout. You'll land at cities to repair, rearm, and even customize your ships to better tackle the troubles headed your way, and when everything falls apart, you'll start over with extra points to acquire better ships based on how well you did in your previous run, encouraging multiple playthroughs until you finally see success. HighFleet is a fantastic experience, one of the most intense and immersive I've had in quite a while, and I can highly recommend checking it out. Darkest Dungeon is 85% off right now, selling for less than $5, and it's one of the most recognizable indie titles, with many games since its release trying to replicate its style and tone. Even though there is a sequel on the way, early access with Darkest Dungeon 2 makes it clear that the first game and the second game are going to be nothing alike, so the first game is still very much worth getting. It's almost an entirely different set of mechanics worth losing yourself in, and the game is extremely addictive, even at its most punishing. Or perhaps I should say especially at its most punishing. A roguelike tactical RPG, Darkest Dungeon has you fighting to reclaim your ancestral estate by recruiting, training, equipping, and ideally maintaining a team of adventurers as they journey through procedurally generated dungeons. The physical pain and mental trauma they suffer all have to be managed through various activities and tools at your disposal, and your characters will develop skills and talents, and they'll act in accordance to their traits, developing various quirks over time that can either help or hinder. Permadeath and an unforgiving level of difficulty work nicely together to create a sense of dread and despair that matches the art style and excellent vocal work, and with over 16 classes and DLC adding more and Steam Workshop integration, there's tons to check out between additional classes, enemies, and items, and much more besides. The game is an old one, having released in early 2015, but it's well worth owning and revisiting over and over again, even if you find the sequel to be interesting. Again, it plays so differently, it's well worth getting the first one. Battle Brothers, currently 50% off at about $16, is another indie classic that you'll hear me recommend very often. It's one of those procedurally generated open-world sandbox squad-based RPGs, but this one just works, where everything clicks together perfectly, challenging you not just to pray harder and harder to the dice gods, but to take advantage of numerous intertwined mechanics to give yourself the best odds in the first place. From stripping naked to optimally battle dream invading monsters, to using a shiv to keep the best loot undamaged at the end of battle, you'll be taking on everything from brigands to orcs, taking on quests as you travel from city to city, aligning yourself with noble houses, making enemies, and hopefully building a mercenary band of battle brothers that sees some form of glory before they all die. There are multiple backstories that apply different mechanics to your start, and each character you come across will have a past of their own. Each one's traits and stats and skills will determine how they're best used in the turn-based, grid-based combat that punctuates the traveling, and when you're done with the base game, there are some great pieces of DLC that'll add new starts, new enemies, new weapons, new equipment, and new strategies into the mix. And the developer actually recently teased another update on the way, hopefully sometime soon. Battle Brothers is one of those games you can always go back to for a good time, and I'll always recommend it as an easy buying decision. Frostpunk is currently sitting at 70% off at just $10, and the base game alone provides countless hours of excellent, innovative city and society building. Set in the aftermath of a Victorian-era apocalypse, Frostpunk has you struggle for survival in the middle of an ice age for which you are underprepared. Resources are scarce, hope even more so, and as you try to establish a safe haven for your people, you'll be tackling a variety of moral decisions that come with their own pros and cons. Balancing actual resources versus the will of your people to go on creates an interesting dynamic, and having to keep people warm goes well beyond the simplistic approach of other survival city builders. Weather shifts can be devastating, and you'll often find yourself racing against time to research, build, or acquire what you need to survive. There are many features in Frostpunk that sound similar to other survival city builders, but Frostpunk is deeper and more intricate in almost every way than any other you've probably played in recent years. Having people work overtime won't just make them tired here. They'll be upset. They might organize general strikes and demand more rights. Or maybe they'll get tired and hurt themselves, taking up hospital beds and not showing up to work for the next couple days. Every decision has a ripple effect, and from the radial building grid to the aforementioned moral dilemmas to exploring the greater world outside your own city, there's lots to explore and experiment with. There are multiple scenarios in the base game, and the DLC does well to expand the compelling narrative as well. What's more, a sequel has been announced, and now's a great time to grab the first game and get yourself familiar with the world and its mechanics so you're up to speed when the sequel drops. Then you can make an informed decision if you want to check that out too. I'll be keeping my eyes on it, but in the meanwhile, the first game is well worth checking out. Mechanicus is 75% off at just about $8, and if you haven't played it yet, you're missing out on one of the best Warhammer 40k games to have released in recent years. With a focused scope pitting the Adeptus Mechanicus against the Necrons, Mechanicus does a fantastic job of translating this unique faction into interesting game mechanics, playing up their reliance on augmentation and their thirst for knowledge. You'll investigate various dig sites, traveling through mazes, triggering events of all kinds, and as you do all this, time is working against you. The longer you take to accomplish your objectives, the more you roam, the harder things will get for you as more and more Necrons awaken. You'll try to research better quality equipment and augment your units accordingly, facing off against some very fun and interesting units from the Necron roster as you field some of your own, and with hit chances always at 100%, you don't even have to pray to any dice gods. It's all about your tactics in the turn-based battles. Taking hits is a result of your own mistakes, which means your successes are the results of your own genius too. I think Mechanicus does a great job from its audio design to its mechanics, and you can tell the developers are genuinely passionate about the IP. The biggest trouble with Warhammer 40k video games is a lack of respect for the IP, so when I see it get the proper love and attention it deserves like this, I have to give props. Mechanicus is a great game that switches up the formula of these XCOM-like games, and it is well worth checking out. Alright, Total War Warhammer is maybe cheating a little since I'm recommending 2 games in one slot here, but the first game of the trilogy is 75% off, and the second one is 66% off. The DLC is largely on sale as well, and this is as good a time as any to complete your collection before the third game releases early next year. Though it won't be available right at release, owning all 3 games and all the DLC will eventually give you access to a massive map across much of the Warhammer Fantasy Battles world, where you'll be able to build your empire through the Total War signature of turn-based nation building on the campaign map and real-time battles where armies engage. Between the free updates and the DLC over the years, Total War Warhammer 1 and 2 have come a very long way, and the various factions give you not just a variety of ways to play on both strategic and tactical levels, but they also give you a great variety of visuals, units, spells, and, damn, it's about 6 years worth of post-release support from a team that's very dedicated to translating an interesting universe into an interesting video game. If you're a fan of the Warhammer Fantasy Battles universe, this is the definitive game from the IP, and you should definitely check it out. And if you're an old historical Total War fan who hasn't jumped into Warhammer yet, as a fan of historical Total War myself, having started back at Shogun 1 days, I can say it's well worth checking out. Though the game simplifies many aspects of the series, it introduces many new ideas and mechanics that keeps things interesting in other ways. If you're going to buy one of these, I recommend buying the other as well to get access to the large Mortal Empires map that combines both first and second games. And like I mentioned, eventually, the third game will support a similar concept that spans the factions and geography of all three games. Total War Warhammer 1 and 2 are just a tremendous time, and I'll always recommend these games. Desperados 3 is 60% off right now at $20, and it's such a great reboot to such a great franchise, I can easily recommend it to any fans of real-time stealth tactics games. You don't need to have played the other prior games in the series to enjoy this one, as it is a prequel title, and you'll get to meet series protagonist John Cooper, following him as he meets friends that make multiple appearances later in the series as well, alongside some new characters too. If you're familiar with Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun, this is by those same developers, and honestly, I cannot wait for them to come back with Desperados 4. They did such a great job capturing the Wild West, giving you multiple angles of approach to each objective, and opening up to all kinds of creative solutions. Each level has challenges associated with them, allowing you to challenge yourself or take the easy route, and the harder difficulty settings really turn up the heat. Desperados 3 is visually top-notch, has great sound design, and has a great mix of characters, each bringing their own tools to the trade. From bear traps and whistles to attract guards to alluring perfumes and literal voodoo magic, there is tons of fun to be had with Desperados 3, and these devs deserve all the support they can get as they keep releasing these finely crafted games. Desperados 3 is often on my recommendations lists, and for good reason. It is a steal at full prices, and so on sale, there's no question about it. If you like the genre, this is the pinnacle of it, and nothing has come close since its release. I do love talking about Steel Division 2, on sale now for just $11 at 75% off. Steel Division 2 is a fantastic World War II game set on the Eastern Front, with multiple challenging campaign scenarios to play through, and an immensely entertaining set of multiplayer systems. From the same folks that brought you the War Game series and Ruse before that, comes an intricate game worth every cent of its full price tag. The campaigns will have you organizing and leading your battalions, engaging against the same from your enemies, and then fighting those battles in real time on massive battle maps where the tiniest of statistical differences between units makes a massive difference. The use of the right ammunition, proper positioning to take advantage of height, cover, and stealth, and the appropriate use of air, artillery, infantry, and armored divisions are just scratching the surface of the conversation. The angle of attack, the penetration of ammunition, the thickness of armor, and effective ranges are all key elements to consider, but positioning commanding officers and their support staff appropriately can make or break entire engagements, as logistical support plays a key role in tipping the balance. Supply trucks need to bring ammunition to units, and scouts can sneak around to spot potential targets for artillery fire, smoking off angles of vision to allow troops to move in secret. I could honestly talk about this game for hours, and with all the DLC it's received, there are a bunch of new campaigns to check out as well, alongside some fantastic free updates. There are plenty of new divisions and units that you can use to build your deck of units that can then be used in multiplayer and skirmish battles, fighting 1v1s and 5v5s, which is always fantastic. But the 10v10s is where the game really shines most, as working together with your teammates becomes of utmost importance. Steel Division 2 is great fun, leading to some intense moments that'll stick with you well after you're done playing. I think fondly on my time playing Steel Division 2, and I often think about diving back into it with the community and just playing some more multiplayer games, because it really is just an extremely fun time. Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden is an underrated game if you ask me, and at 60% off, costing just about $17, it's an absolute steal. Set in the post-apocalyptic universe of the Mutant Year Zero tabletop RPG, Road to Eden features some excellent writing, a great sense of humor, and it bucks the trend of bloated, procedurally generated games in this genre. You lead a band of mutants through a great story, sneaking around the world, seeking out equipment, and diving into battle from time to time using a variety of skills, weapons, and above all, upgradable mutations to your advantage. The engagements are all handcrafted, and so each one is an experience rather than the result of some algorithm trying to build something compelling. And though I first thought this would make for a rather limited experience, I was instead pleasantly surprised by Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden's refined approach. There's been some DLC that's worth exploring as well, and honestly, the writing alone makes this game an absolute pleasure to explore, and the gameplay itself is a compelling blend, again, of stealth adventuring and turn-based tactical combat that's all been handcrafted. Nothing procedural here, nothing randomized, nothing bloated. It's a refined experience, a breath of fresh air, and a lot of fun. Crusader Kings 3 has been seeing sales for a while now, and once more it's 20% off for just about $45, and I have to recommend it yet again. You've heard me say it time and time again, but the Crusader Kings series completely changed how I look at strategy gaming as a genre, and Crusader Kings 3 doubles down on everything that made the prior game special. Blending role-playing and strategy gaming, Crusader Kings 3 has you playing as an individual person and their line through the medieval era. Spanning across a massive map, you'll be able to play as one of a multitude of cultures and faiths, as a count, a duke, a king, or an emperor, working your way up the ladder by any means necessary. Court intrigue, war, seduction, and more besides will allow you to play your own rendition of a medieval drama or a song of ice and fire as you command armies. On which note, there are some wild mods coming out that either enhance the gameplay experience significantly or completely overhaul it, like, yes, a Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and much more besides. And all that is on top of the amazing base game experience that's full of wild event chains, great storytelling, a great sense of humor, and options for days. Attend feasts, murder the host while you're there, hunt bears while pregnant, sacrifice the Pope, become a Crusader King, lead a jihad, write poetry, or just collect as many mistresses as you can before you die of an STD. There's so much you can do in Crusader Kings 3, and it's all so, again, meticulously crafted. Now, there's not been too much DLC for Crusader Kings 3 just quite yet, but an absolutely massive expansion is dropping early next year, and in my opinion, it's ideal to stay ahead of the curve with Paradox games so that you don't have to trade a kidney to buy all the DLC and the base game all at once a couple years down the line. The base game is great. It's not some stripped down experience, and it's well worth its price tag here, and as DLC drops, it's just going to keep getting bigger and better. There you have it, folks, my personal favorites from the ongoing Steam sale. If you have any picks of your own that you'd like to share, throw them in the comments down below. It's always cool to see what others are interested in, and it's great to see stuff that might have slipped past me. Any of these calls you've got thoughts on yourself, let me know those too. And if you're interested in more strategy, sim, and management gaming coverage, don't hesitate to subscribe to this channel. As always, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.